Come and dream with me.
Hello and welcome to What Do You Want to Watch, the Explosion Network's premier media podcast. Every fortnight we get together to talk about movies, TV and online content and help you answer the question, how are we going to move on now that Michael Caine is retired? I don't know, it's going to be really difficult, but you know, we wish him all the best in retire... What? Nope, I just got word he's not retired. What a relief. I'm your host, Ashley Hobley. Join me today, Dylan Blight.
You actually had me going because, so, all I saw the other day was a tweet or whatever, or some Facebook post or whatever. I don't know, Michael Caine saying, I'm not retired. And I was like, what is a reference to this? I completely missed. So there was a story going around saying he's retired.
Give us the story of him being retired.
Yeah, I missed that. I didn't even know that was a thing until you just said it. I somehow missed this.
No, somehow he said he was retired in an interview. And then had to say he wasn't retired in another interview.
Oh yeah, I missed all this. So somehow.
Yeah, good times. Alright, on today's episode, we're going to talk about what's in our watch history. We're covering a little bit of news, mostly what happened at DC FanDome this week. We'll be giving some thumbs to trailers and talk about this week's top 3. Dylan, you've got a review up on the website for the big Australian film, maybe of the year, Nitram.
Yeah, what I watched it, everyone. I guess that's the most interesting point there. So I really like it. What did I give it, a 9, I think? Does that sound right? So. Yeah, like, obviously it's, like, I'm in two things where I'm like, I don't want to spoil it, but also it's based on a true story, so it's like, can I really spoil it? So I'll get the, like, sort of PSA out of the way as someone who's actually now finally watched the film. Well, in case you don't know, so it's based on the Port Arthur massacre, right? And the film does follow. It's not. There was like a story going around for a while where they're like, "Oh, it's not really focused on Martin Bryant or any of that sort of stuff." And to a degree, the film sort of follows this unwritten rule. And I nearly wanted to touch on this in my review, but I decided not to. But there's sort of this unwritten rule for you don't say his name, even though I just said it, like, just so everyone knows what I'm talking about. Especially here in Tasmania, I guess there's like a thing where, back when, like to a degree, like after, like in 96, 97, like after everything happened, they just stopped saying his name. Like everyone between politicians and news outlets and everyone sort of just decided that they no longer wanted to say his name and give his name like sort of recognition, and
power,
he was just, so they wanted to take that power away from him, which, you know, that makes sense. So in trying to, I guess, Justin Kurzel and the writer Sean Grant, and those two have worked together for the last couple of films they've done together. Most recently, of course, we talked about Snowtown on here, where we did a spoiler cast for it, but obviously I really loved True History of the Kelly Gang, and that was my favourite film of the year. They try to, I guess, stick to that and sort of appease and that sort of thing they never say his name in the movie either. He's referred to solely as Nitram, which in the movie is explained as sort of a nickname he hates. I do not know if that's actually a real thing or something they've just made up as a quick throwaway plot point, so they have a reason for him to be referred to as that, because his family just never really call him by his name. They just say like son and all this sort of stuff. His parents are never referred to by their name. They're just simply cast as mum, dad, and all this sort of stuff. So there's lots of like dodging around what happens. Skip ahead if you don't want to know where the film ends, but I'm going to say not exactly how it goes down, but just for people who are wondering just how close this film gets to the Port Arthur stuff. Yeah. Skip ahead like a minute if you don't know. But so if you do want to know, the film goes right up until the moment before. So you do see him do everything he did the day of the Port Arthur massacre. You do see him drive up and park at the restaurant. You do see him sit down and eat food. You do see him open up and put the camera on the table that he did in real life and press play. You do see him pull out a gun, and that's as far as it gets. You do not see any shooting of people or anything like that. So they kind of draw the line there. The movie itself is, I think, as far as treating the material as to, like, what's the point of making this movie? I think the main sort of focus point that they had was it is a very sort of anti or gun control or, you know, anti-gun movie or however you want to put it, especially one scene in which it very obviously points out the ridiculousness in which he was able to get guns legally at the time somehow. And sort of that's obviously a big focus point. Although it's weirdly in the post-text sort of aimed at Australians as to like they give some number about how many people have guns now legally is more than they did back then. Even though there's probably a lot of more people who had them illegally back then. I don't know, it's just a weird conundrum to get into. But even then, I just feel like the anti-gun message would be more poignant for American audiences, who obviously they have a lot more, like, we don't have mass gun shootings in Australia since, not like this anyway. I'm not saying there's not shootings in Australia. There is, obviously. But there's not to this, like, to the degree that you hear about and read about in America, semi-regularly. I guess, like, to a degree, COVID's helped keep the fucking psychos inside even. But still happens. So that part, that does seem to be the main message. There is a lot left open that, again, I'm just trying to like not get deep into like spoilers even that thing, but like the movie leaves a lot to, it's definitely the sort of thing you can watch, and if you watch with someone, there's no way you're not going to want to discuss like what the certain elements that the movie brings up, because I wouldn't say it makes a case for like protecting him as a killer and like saying what he did was the fault of someone else. However, the movie does feel like it makes a case for like he was someone who like he shouldn't have been able to buy those guns, but also he's just like you could say the movie makes a case for better mental health sort of things, or like bad family situation. Like there's just lots of sort of discussion points or whatever. I certainly don't feel like it either romanticizes him or makes him a hero or some sort of like Ted Bundy sort of hot serial killer type motif that, you know, some things have done previously. It's really well acted though. Like at the end of the day, it is a really well acted movie. Essie Davis is fucking phenomenal in it. Judy Davis as the mother is fantastic. And Caleb Landry Jones is obviously the centerpiece as Nitram himself. But it is really, I guess, between Caleb and Essie Davis, who plays Helen, who's like this rich older woman that he sort of falls in with and ends up moving in with, and for a period, it almost seems like she's sort of this balancing point to his real life. But between those two, they're just fucking this really great off connection between those two that's really weird, but it works. And it's shot really well, even though one side annoyance I have, I can't remember if I bothered to mention in my review, but because I don't know if it's a proper criticism, but I can tell it's not actually shot in Tasmania because it's not, and it doesn't actually look like it's shot down, and like it just doesn't. As you know, maybe that's just like one of those weird annoyances as someone who's been to, I'm like, that doesn't look like
Arthur and stuff.
Yeah. I'm like, there's just a feel to it that just feels off. It doesn't.
I
feel
assumed
like
there was like a line. It's like maybe they couldn't get the permits and stuff because of the subject matter of the film. And I'm pretty sure they either tried and wouldn't, or they just decided it was easier for them to not try to even bother shooting it because in the best interests of everybody. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I gave it a 9, so obviously, and I would say it's definitely one of the better acted and shot movies I've watched of the year. I don't think there's anything particularly grotesque. They never go to these weird scenes where, he's fucking torturing animals because they got to show you that to prove that he's a serial killer. Like, it doesn't fall out under any of the typical tropes. So yeah, I would say it's definitely one of my favorite movies of the year, as weird as that is to say. But I am someone who's able to, as weird as I explained in my review, my connection to Port Arthur, which is like I heard about it as a kid. I was old enough to hear about it, but I don't have like a strong I don't have family that was there. Yeah, I don't have like I understand how. Yeah, I don't have that strong a connection where I understand that people who might not want to watch it, but yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah, done reasonably respectfully. That's the word. Yes. Yeah. Although maybe people would have felt better if they treated him more like a serial killer type. Like, you don't feel like they humanized him too much, or I think that might have been a lot of the worry for people. Like, obviously, there was a fair amount of. I feel like the movie does a good job of going, look, here's someone who like he needs help. He needs there's like I can't remember what the number is, but when they
when he went to prison, it's something that, like, there is his IQ number that floats around, right? And it's really fucking low. Like, he is someone who needed help. He is sort of a product of his surroundings or whatever, but that's not to say that the blame lies on his family or anything like that, but it's certainly a point of discussion that the film has. And the other interesting thing is that the film does briefly sort of try and show you what is supposedly the thing that made him want to do the shooting in the first place, which was watching a news story about another shooting that happened in Ireland, like earlier in 1996. And the film shows you that, but it's funny. Well, it's not really funny, but it's just interesting to see that this movie is a movie about a serial killer. And in this movie, it shows you that a serial killer gets inspired to do a serial killing by watching a news story about a serial killer. And then it's like, is this a thing where someone else could be watching this movie? And that makes them want to be, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a weird, and the film doesn't really touch on that, but it's just, I don't know. Doing movies about real life serial killers is just a weird subject to do correctly. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Nitram available in cinemas now wherever it is playing, potentially for you or not. Otherwise, it is coming to Stan on November 24th. Speaking of Stan, I watched the new series that dropped over there that released on Peacock in America called One of Us is Lying, based on a world best-selling book by Karen M. McManus. It follows a bunch of high school students. So these 5 students go into detention, and one of the kids dies from a peanut allergy that after taking a drink of water out of his cup. It turns out someone planted peanut oil in his cup, and now these 4 other students are suspected of his murder. The kid who dies, Simon, played by Mark McKenna, who previously appeared in Sing Street and the criminally 1 season long YouTube series Wayne, was running like a gossip website. He pretty much was like Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, trading in secrets and that kind of stuff, and like kind of exposing people for his own interest in feeling like the people in this high school were like hypocrites and that kind of stuff, and just kind of he thought he was a purveyor of good justice and that kind of stuff. So all the kids have like some kind of motive right before he gets murdered. Like he announces he's going to make 4 big reveals in the coming week. All the secrets relating to the other 4 people who are in detention with him. So it seems like these kids are being set up, or maybe one of them's the murderer. Yeah. So all the kids are like very kind of go with the like a stereotypical base. One of the kids is a jock. One of the kids is like a pretty blonde, the nerdy valedictorian, straight-laced student. The other one's like a drug dealer, delinquent type. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I think I'm enjoying like the piecing together of the mystery, like enjoying a lot of the characters. I really like Simon, who they look back at through a lot of flashbacks. I think it's kind of disappointing we don't get more of him, because he's an interesting character. But yeah, it's definitely got like the teen drama kind of vibes, like your Gossip Girls and your OCs and that kind of stuff, high school drama kind of stuff. But got this element of these 4 kids bonding together because they're all being accused of murder at the same time, that kind of thing. Yeah. So there's currently 6 episodes of the 8-episode season available on Stan at the moment. I would highly recommend One of Us Lying. All right. We've both checked out films from the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival, which is currently running online. Dylan, you checked out the film Mental as Anything.
Yeah, so it's I'm sorry, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but it's it's basically a documentary or a combination of a stage show that, if you can get up their names, that would be fantastic. That these 2 dudes have done, that's sort of a musical where they make songs and talk about mental health and each of their own struggles. And it's like, I guess it's a translation of that plus some different elements made into a movie. I think it's like rather educational to a degree, but also fun at the same time by doing different ways of explaining and talking about things. So, like, there's like times where they'll literally just be talking to you and being like, "Here's a scenario I struggle with," and like he talks about his OCD where he has to like take his socks off and on like several times a morning, and it's something he has to do. Where his brain wants to do it like 7 times, but of course you have 2 feet, so it's weird, and he can't get it right, and he has to take one off on separate and all this. Like, just gives like examples, then talks about how it's really weird that people say things like, "Oh, I had to put my salt and pepper shakers right next to each other. That makes me so OCD." He's like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, and like it's like it has a very tongue in cheek sort of fun way of talking about subject matters. Dive into like sort of like getting anxiety and like depression and all this sort of stuff. But it's a combination of talking head pieces that are like sort of education, explaining how they feel. There's some animated stuff where they use some more metaphorical ways of explaining how like this animated character going into a dark dingy bar, and then a character comes up and is like, life sucks, blah blah blah, and someone else comes along and they're like, everyone hates you, and it's like explaining how inside your head feels. And then they'll have a song. Some of them, there's like 1 or 2 songs I think are taken straight from the live show, and there's a couple others that are like filmed. I presume they're from the show, but also just filmed in different locations directly for this show itself, this movie. I think it's really good. I think it's like a very educational, good way to watch it. I think I say something in my review at the end of it about, I think I don't think there's any swear words or anything that I could remember. I don't think there was anything that particularly made this high rated. Maybe I'm wrong, but I was like, by the time I reached the end of it, I'm like, this is the sort of thing they should just be showing in schools. Like, it's a fun way to talk about these subjects.
Issues, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so it's directed by Damon Smith, starring Damon Smith, Adam Code. So, yeah, as well as anything. I checked out the documentary Finding Creativity, which is written and directed by Roger Ungers, in which he interviews a bunch of creative people, whether it's a glass artist called Holly Grace, celebrated chef, restaurant owner Kuskin Olsen, and a talented singer-songwriter Henry Brett, as well as an accomplished social entrepreneur Jen Owen, and a creativity researcher, Tim Patson, and kind of like questions them about creativity and like how it affects their lives. And obviously a lot of those people are into creative fields and that kind of stuff. As a documentary, I don't think it's like, as a feature documentary, I don't think it works. Like, it's kind of, I feel like he might have needed like more subjects to talk about, or more perspectives. It just kind of feels a bit short. Obviously, it only runs like 1 hour 6, so it's not very long. It definitely feels like maybe it is just marketed to be like a TV kind of, show after like Four Corners or something on the ABC or something like that. But yeah, there's some interesting ideas thrown out here, like about how they study creativity, and what like how you make money off creativity, and obviously there's struggles with balancing financial needs versus creativity and that kind of stuff. I think they bring up like creativity in a group, and how that's different to being an individual, but then they don't have anybody who does like any creative work in like a group. I feel like that's probably the one interviewee that was kind of missing. And then my other issue with the documentary is like, there's not a lot of B footage, and it just ends up being like drone shots of landscapes and stuff, which is like kind of visually uninteresting, in my opinion. Whether you should have just included more of the actual subjects talking instead of like trying to get cool overhead shots of like the beaches and that kind of stuff. It's like, I don't know, trying to get inspire creative inspiration, that kind of stuff. I don't know what exactly his intention, but it didn't quite work for me. But I think it's an interesting watch. But yeah, I think those are my criticisms of it and that kind of stuff. So yeah,
I've watched 2 others as well.
Have you
watched any others?
No, I haven't had the chance to watch any others.
So yes. I've watched. I think I'm just going to write an article, but not like review, because I'll just combine. I did watch Black Summer and fucking Inferno Without Borders. So
Okay.
2 fire movies. I watched 2 of the fire movies. I'm thinking about just writing an article that's like what was good about them, because it's just like to a degree they are both just very they're just education. I mean they're just not it's hard to be like, here, this is, and to a degree of it, like mental is everything, but I mean that did feel like it was a proper film or whatever. These two just feel like people interviewed people and wanted to talk about the fires and whatever. Like they are quite. So if I had to pick, I'd say Black Summer is just not as interesting. So it basically follows 5-ish people who are talking about their experiences with the 2019. Fucking feels like so long ago. The 2019 Australian bushfires, that fucking tore half the country apart. Obviously focusing more around the Vic, New South Wales, Canberra, like that sort of area. I think it follows like 5 people talking about what happened to them. But to a degree, there's not really one standout story. And I know this sounds bad, but like most of the people are like, oh, like all the trees got burnt and I had to protect my house. And like, this sounds bad, but it's just like saying as a movie, there was no like standout, particularly interesting case amongst them all. I'm like, that's horrible. I wish it didn't happen. But that's also a lot of like, it's a very similar story for a lot of people who went through what they went through during that period, if you know what I'm saying. Like it's just a very similar sort of like, I had to protect my house. And there's just not really many, I guess like interesting takes on it. On the opposite end, I did find Inferno Without Borders to be very good. Like I would say this one is the one I'd suggest to watch if you was going to watch one of these movies currently. By the way, all of this is online. You can watch any of these movies we're talking about until the end of the month, I think. End of October.
31st, I think. They're like around the $10 mark each. Yeah, so
we can get a package. I think it's cheaper to rent some if you rent a couple at the same time or something. But Inferno Without Borders talks more about how the fires could have been prevented, and the film also has a major focus on, I guess, a more political angle of saying, here's how the politics fucked us, here's how people didn't follow us. It also has a lot of Aboriginal voices in it, talking about how and explaining their ways and the ways that they were taught and how to sort of, I guess, do, I can't remember the exact word, but, like burning, like preemptive burning to then stop bushfires from happening, like controlled burns, I guess is what controlled burns is what they call them.
Burns,
yes. So they do a good job of explaining like, well, here's what the government does when they do controlled burn, and explaining why the way they do it isn't the best. And then they've got several people to explain the Aboriginal way in which they would like to do controlled burns, and they're not allowed to because they're not working as part of the government or whatever. Or in most places, there is one person they have in who's actually hired to do it, and I think maybe up towards Western Australia way or something like that. And explaining the way in which they do it is like, I can't remember it all exactly, but imagine like the way the governments want to do it is just burn a straight line, and they want to burn say a rotating inward circle, which creates a completely different burn pattern. And they explain like how that's so different to everything else, and the way it sort of disrupts the fire and all this sort of stuff. Like I found this one really quite interesting because it had a lot of different takes on why it happened, how politics, how we could have, people were warning about these fires for years and no one was really doing anything about it, and how maybe you can't really stop Mother Nature, but a lot more things could have been done to preemptively be prepared for what was going to happen. And how I just found its take being a little bit more, having that little bit more of a political bite, I guess you could call it, just made it a bit more of an interesting film to watch.
Absolutely. So check those films out. Hopefully we'll talk about some more next episode. All right. So I finished 2 series that I believe Dylan is still catching up on.
Wow,
yeah, I know. So I've finished this first season of the TV series Heels, obviously starring Stephen Amell and which Skarsgård is it?
Alexander?
No, It's definitely not Alexander. No, it's Alexander Ludwig.
Oh, there you go. I thought it was Alexander.
It wasn't a Skarsgård. Yeah, obviously, following the GWL, the Duffy Wrestling League, and the characters involved and around it. Obviously, we talked about it when it first premiered. Solid show. I think it obviously continues having that like Friday Night Lights vibe. It's kind of weird that Stephen Amell's character very much has a lot of elements from his character in Arrow. Where he's lying
How many
about a lot of
episodes was
stuff.
this in the end?
It's only
by the
8
way?
episodes.
Okay.
Yeah, 8 episodes. Yeah, so he kind of, he's keeping a lot of secrets and like wants to be very controlling and that kind of stuff. And his brother is like a dick and very impulsive, and I feel like they built to a good conclusion. Even though the final match has a major flaw that I feel like a lot of wrestling fans will pick apart. But yeah, there's a lot of like fun moments and that kind of stuff. I think probably the character who comes out of the show looking the best is probably Crystal, played by Kelly Berglund. The valet who wants to be a wrestler and that kind of stuff. I feel like the show also improved when they stopped having a sex scene in every single episode. That was kind of like a distraction, especially early on, where it seemed like every single episode there was a pair of tits in it. That kind of took away from the story and the wrestling and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I would recommend checking it out. I'm definitely hopeful, and I'm pretty sure I would be very surprised if there isn't a second season. Yeah. But another like side tidbit, which is quite amusing. Obviously, CM Punk shows up as a character. He shows back up in the finale, and one of the characters in the finale shits his pants, much like CM Punk did in the ring, famously. And after it's announced, they cut to CM Punk is in like on screen when the crew on the back get told. So it's quite amusing, The other show, Ted Lasso Season 2, has come to an end. I'm definitely keen for Dylan to catch up because I desperately want to have a conversation about this. Obviously, a show that's, had its ups and downs this season. I feel like, or at least for some people, obviously, it kind of had that second season backlash where it looked to evolve in certain ways. Or do certain things, and obviously people, I feel like there's a certain number of people who just want more of the same. The same people who love to watch The Office over and over again, or Seinfeld or whatever. They just kind of want the same kind of thing every single season, and they don't want, the show to tackle other things. And I feel like that's what the show did. It tackled a lot more about mental health and like coaching as opposed to therapy. I think Sarah Niles' character was a great addition this season. I feel like they took characters in certain interesting directions that, maybe you don't necessarily like, but are interesting for story reasons. And, I feel like they kind of cut back on the soccer actual element. I don't know, like, at the start of the season, they're doing quite poorly on a run of draws. But, suddenly they turn around at some point, despite us just never seeing them turning it around. I feel like obviously the sports element is kind of like takes kind of a backseat to a lot of the character drama and that kind of stuff. I think I saw someone point out that Ted Lasso is kind of like a sports anime to a certain degree where, sure they play sports, but, it's all about characters and like relationships and that kind of stuff. I really like it. Lot of fun, and yeah, I look forward to you finishing it so I can talk to you about some of the more interesting plot points. You really let me down. I just watched another thing on Apple TV Plus, debuted right after Ted Lasso finished. It's called Acapulco. So it is about a wealthy Mexican man telling his nephew his life story, and how the biggest change in his life came from working at this big resort in his hometown, and kind of, it's like a comedy kind of based around this resort, and like he's learning. It's like a coming of age comedy, but he works at a resort, so it's like the funny version of White Lotus. I assume. There's less murders so far. Yeah. So I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm only like 2 episodes in, but yeah, there's a nice rounding cast. There's obviously Maximo, who's the main kid. Of course, the girl he like quickly falls in love with at first sight, who works at the counter. The big manager, who is like an idol to him and that kind of stuff. And then the American who owns the entire actual resort. And then her son, who's the general manager, and of course is dating the girl that he's in love with. He's also got a best friend who ends up working the laundry at the resort while he's working like poolside and that kind of stuff, like helping out people and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. 2 episodes in. I like the setting of like it being told to his like as a story. Definitely feels like kind of Princess Bride like, the narrator kind of element with the kid interrupting the story at times and that kind of stuff. It might get old the further the season goes on, but yeah, starting off is quite enjoyable. All right, let's move into the mandatory Netflix segment of the show. Dylan, you've watched the most watched Netflix series of all time, Squid Game. Tell me, how many squids are there? 0.
Damn. Spoilers.
I watched the first episode, so I understand.
Oh, you watched the first episode? Holy moly. Yeah, so Squid Game's very good. I don't think that's a surprise, because if that many people are watching something, surely it has to be good. I wouldn't say it's like, even though it's the most watched, it's definitely not, like, it hasn't jumped to the best Netflix series of all time,
It's not your favorite foreign language TV series of Netflix of all time?
No, it is not. Do you want to guess what that position is? No,
That's
you would
dark.
know. Yeah, that is dark, correct. Which, by the way, I've changed my Netflix display picture. They added dark ones, so I've changed it to a dark one. Like, the
Ooh.
icons? Yeah, there you go. Get hyped. That's how massive that series is. It's massive. In Germany?
Yeah, finally. Squid Game got profile pictures in like 2 weeks after
In like 2 weeks. It took fucking 3 seasons, the whole show to finish before I could get some dark ones. It's bloody ridiculous. But yeah, Squid Game, I guess, in case people have missed the memo, it's sort of like a cross between Battle Royale and game show. I don't know. Like, it's literally, how many people is it? I don't know. It's like a couple hundred people or whatever. They're
356 or something? Or whatever number you're swinging in your show.
Yeah, I can't remember, yeah. It's like a bunch of people, they've all got money problems. They're gathered up by this secretive sort of group of people or whatever. They all wear masks and whatever else, and in the first episode they're like, oh, play a game, it'll be fun, the winner gets to win money. Spoilers, they are playing with their lives, because if you fuck up, you're going to die in this game, and the winner's going to be the one who survives longer. So it's kind of Battle Royale, but in game form fashion. The deep-seated politics sort of play into the I guess what do you call it, mental blanking on my words, fucking the ultra rich or whatever.
Class stuff.
Yeah, class and all that sort of stuff. So coming back to because I think we discussed it last time when we haven't watched it, the whole translation thing, blah, 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 blah. So I would say that I had no problem. Like, obviously the show makes sense watching it with subtitles on, and you can understand it. I have watched a couple of videos of people being like, look, this is how this person is actually talking, and here's what they're actually saying, and here's the reason why this scene in particular, like, it's not all of them. Some of the translation is perfectly fine sometimes, but it's more like in a couple key scenes I've seen people point out that, like, the translation here hasn't had enough effort put into it, and now it's lost the nuance of what this character is actually saying. So I guess it's like sort of losing. It'd be like if someone was translating something I was saying, and if I was using some sort of, I guess, to a degree, like slangy, or just the way I was like delivering a line, and like you would be able to tell if I'm being like sort of sarcastic or whatever, and it's being translated in a way that doesn't portray exactly how that character is saying that line at that time. So I've seen a couple videos that I can, certainly be like, well, if that is how that character is saying it, I can understand how that is a potential issue. It's still definitely watchable. I really enjoyed the whole theme. I feel like the show was a little bit too long. I feel like it should have been maybe an episode less. Would have been a bit picture perfect. The last episode is a little bit of a mess in my opinion. It feels like it doesn't really know what it's doing with its big reveal and how it's going to wrap everything up and where it's going to go. And I don't feel like it quite lands its sort of like fade to black credits moment as sort of hype as maybe it wants to be. But I still enjoyed it nonetheless. If you've seen everyone talk about the Marbles episode is really, really good. That is definitely the height of the season. I think that is like episode 6 or 7 or something like that. I can't remember. Yeah, somewhere around there. That is definitely the height of the season. That is definitely one of my favorite episodes of TV I've watched this year. However, that is also by far the best written episode of the show. And some of the less interesting or like that one feels like it had everything put into it, and it really laid out how well some of these characters can be written if you give them time to just talk amongst themselves and have an episode focused on that. And the way that episode's plot, the twist of that game's revealed, it really kind of digs a knife into you in a way that the rest of the games don't do. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's definitely worth watching, I would say.
Definitely, yeah. It's definitely on the list of things to finish eventually.
Did you like the first episode at least?
Yeah, it was cool. Like, I kind of knew what the setup was going to be and, like, how as soon as they stepped into that giant pit field, I kind of knew. Because I'd seen trailers and that kind of stuff,
Okay, I hadn't seen any trailers or anything, so, like, I presumed that something was going to happen because I knew, like, there was going to be, like, I assumed they were playing for the lives or whatever to a degree, but I didn't realize, because I didn't watch any trailers or anything. The second that someone got shot, I was like, oh.
Oh, this is where it's going.
Okay.
Cool. And the other thing I want to mention, there's the new season of the Movies That Made Us, more of a horror-themed season. I watched the Halloween episode of the Movies That Made Us. Kind of interesting, because I'd recently watched Halloween. I'm talking about the 1978 version of the film, directed by John Carpenter, not the version directed by Rob Zombie, or the version directed by David Gordon Green, which we did do a spoiler cast that we're releasing next week in anticipation for Halloween Kills, which we'll do a spoiler cast at some point in the week after it comes out. But yeah, I think I would have appreciated watching this before we recorded that, because it gave me more appreciation for the the first film, which I called boring, and a guy standing around in the day. No, I don't, because it's quite amusing. And it is still a guy walking around in the middle of the street with just a mask.
What did nobody
episode notice?
Because I was trying to picture it as, like something as of its time, serial killers. Like,
no, I think I just appreciated more the effort it took to make the film, and
like as an indie horror film, or?
As an indie horror film that was made for like $300,000 and made many, many millions of dollars. Also, the distribution of the film was interesting, where he released it in like one city in case he didn't make any money, and and then he could just go to the next city and start again. But it made double its money for the first 3 days, and then the guy knew it was success and that kind of stuff. The guy who was in the Michael Myers, who was actually in the mask, was just like a friend who was hanging around set. He's like, "Hey, do you want to just walk around in the suit? Do you want to just walk around in the middle of the day in this mask, please?"
I think they brought that guy back for the recent ones, I think.
Yeah. Oh no, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. They showed like
3 people that play Michael in the recent ones, but
yeah. Yeah, so I would recommend that, and obviously, all the kind of stuff is good. Good explaining that kind of stuff. Although they obviously missing key people, they can't afford to get John Carpenter or Jamie Lee Curtis to come back and talk about these things. So, yeah, definitely check out the Movies That Made Us. It's pretty solid document. One of those really good series about delving into the background of these movies. All right, that's everything in our watch history. Let's move into some movie, TV news, and the big story. DC FanDome happened. Bunch of different things were announced. Went for 4 hours. I would say Could have been shorter.
I thought it was 3.5, but yeah.
I mean, they spent like 20 minutes like introducing everything. So feel like that could have been cut. You watch most of it once you actually woke up.
Look, I missed the first hour. I sat my alarm for a long time. My bad. But I watched the rest.
It's not like, see, that's why you should have written the article for explosionary.com. Then you actually would have checked what the times were.
Possibly. But I was there for the important parts, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did kick the show off with our first look at Black Adam. Obviously a project that Dwayne Johnson's been working on, I think I heard, since 2008. So pretty much after he left wrestling, this was a project that, he got into the works. We kind of got a glimpse at like a lot of the other actors who'll be in the film and that kind of stuff, but the main bulk of the content was the scene where Black Adam gets summoned to Earth, I'm assuming is what happens. It looks like, yes. Somebody says Shazam, and he comes down. What did you think of the look of Black Adam so far?
Yeah, it was kind of like a nothing thing. It was like, I guess it was cool, but he has like a hood on, the way they're showing his powers looks sort of threatening or whatever, like he like completely disintegrates one person.
Yeah, I was about to say.
He seems to move at a fast pace and everything, like just see like the way he swings around. Like he's very, very violent in his actions and just disintegrates someone, so that's cool. But yeah, I kind of wish I'd just seen a full look at him, but they're obviously saving that for the first big trailer or whatever else. It was kind of cool to hear Pierce Brosnan just hype the movie up, like fucking put it over like really well. Like I did like 10 years of James Bond. Yeah, it's like I did 10 years of James Bond. They ain't got shit on this fucking movie.
Admittedly, it's like 20 years ago since he's done that, and blockbuster movies have changed dramatically since. But yeah, that's pretty big get. Yeah, so Black Adam scheduled for July next year. So
one up, one down.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a fine look. Obviously, it's just a 10. It's interesting, obviously, to compare it to another film, like comparing it to what we saw in The Flash, which is a lot more hype. But is it more hype because we know all those characters that they're teasing in that? Whereas this, this is a brand new property. They could have shown us a bit more of an interesting first look and that kind of stuff. But no, I feel like obviously there's a second year. Last year they typed it up with those motion picture origin story thing.
Here's the history of Black Adam. Here's some concept art. Blah 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 blah. Year later, here's some real footage of the movie, but he's in a cloak.
We've still got to wait. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a trailer maybe the end of the year. Obviously, with the release date mid next year. When you consider that Batman comes out March. So yeah, next year's going to be busy, I think.
A lot of movies come out next year. It's absolutely fucked. There's like 10 DC movies coming out in 1 year. It's ridiculous. Compared with all the Marvel shit that's coming out, is there room for any other movies? No, just comic books? Fucking ridiculous.
What? There's only
gotta watch them all anyway.
Yeah. They covered some DC stuff, like obviously The Flash is coming back for another season. We got a little bit of behind the scenes look at Aquaman and Lost Kingdom. Unsurprising how little they showed of Amber Heard.
They showed nothing of Amber Heard.
They showed 2 shots and that was it.
I think she was in the distance.
It's
like wasn't really for center frame, so
it's like very much I'm looking forward to her being replaced in CGI.
Well, they showed one moment of Alison Mack in the Smallville hype reel, so and they never mentioned her name at all. So,
yeah, that's interesting. Then we got they're calling it a teaser trailer for the Peacemaker TV series, but I think it's a trailer. Yeah, they're good as give us like a full look and kind of a better idea of what exactly the series is going to be. It seems like he's joining a team performing hits for somebody. Okay. Yeah, I thought it looks really interesting, and obviously it gives us we're going to get a bigger look at Peacemaker and like his history and that kind of stuff. Is the extent where Robert Patrick appears to be playing his dad, and he's got a pet bald eagle.
He's got an eagle. It's fucking... The first time I watched the trailer, I thought it was just at the end where it was hugging him. But then I realized he's actually... That eagle's like doing the superhero shot with them as well as they're walking towards the camera. He's in the background there, like beside them all.
He's also in the car at the start. I don't know.
Yeah, head bobbing along. Yeah. So, I double thumbs up for this one. All about that eagle. And, yeah, I'm ready. I don't really need anything else. I'm all about that eagle life. But no, it looks really good. Obviously, if you like the Suicide Squad, if you liked John Cena in that, if you liked his role as fucking Peacemaker, I reckon there's no way you're not going to watch this. So it looks quite bloody. They just didn't show it in this trailer. There was lots of moments with people having blood on them. They just weren't showing how the blood got there. So I think it's still going to have that same level of violence that the film obviously had.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like it's going to be pretty bonkers and that kind of stuff. You know, John Cena in the tidy whities again. Getting his ass kicked.
They thrown him through a wall there at some stage and then failed to do platforming sequences and completely just missed all of them down the side of a building. So
yeah, I noticed the Audio Technica product placement.
I nearly tweeted something about that. Yeah, it's fucking that very close up shot of the needle, the Audio Technica symbol. Yeah, shout outs. Yeah, yeah, hilarious. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this coming HBO Max January 13th. Where it'll end up here? Probably Foxtel Binge. I don't know. Yeah.
Hard to say. We got a taste. They gave us some concept art for the new animated Superman series that's coming up. I'm pretty interested in what that's going to look like. Looks like it'd be interesting to see who they get cast-wise for that. Then apparently, today, 20 years since the release of the first episode of Smallville.
Crazy.
Bonkers. So they had, Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum having a chat with host
Tiffany Smith,
yeah. I believe the full interview is like on somewhere else. They kind of cut it down for the time, that kind of stuff. And then Jim Lee comes out and says Spider-Man's new motto is truth, justice, and a better tomorrow.
It's Superman's new motto.
Yeah, that's what I said, wasn't it?
No, he said Spider-Man's new motto.
It's also No. Okay, Superman's. Truth, justice, and a better tomorrow, which did not go down well amongst a certain crowd.
Yeah. He's American. Americans just have a weird thing where they're like, look, we hate immigrants, but this immigrant is okay. Superman, he's American. Technically. 100% an illegal alien.
Yep. They gave us a tease for DC League of Super Pets, which just looks bonkers. A crazy concept. Just because it is Dwayne Johnson voicing Crypto and Kevin Hart voicing Ace the Bat-Hound. That's coming at some point. It's got a teaser for trailer for Doom Patrol.
Is it?
What?
I think they said full trailer in November for that one as well.
Yeah, full trailer for November. I think they did another tease. There was also a Kids FanDome version running at the same time. Mostly just like Teen Titans Go projects they're working, including crossover for with the Doom Patrol and the probably pimping the Teen Titans Go with DC Superhero Girls, I think is the other series. So that's there. And also Batwheels, which we got a teaser for here.
Yeah, Batwheels.
What a catchy song.
Give me the video game of that. Add that as Hot Wheels DLC or some shit.
So then we got a teaser for The Flash. We get a scene of, Barry. It's pretty much Barry going to the Wayne Manor in the Michael Keaton universe. It seems like obviously he saved his mother from getting murdered and he's changed time. It's pretty much the story of Flashpoint. And it's pretty clear to anybody who's read that story or, watched the Flash version of that. It's like quite interesting. Obviously we get the silhouette of like Batman, Michael Keaton's Batman at the end. We get a small look at Sasha Cale's Supergirl. There's 2 Ezra Miller Flashes at one point. And it definitely looks like he's about to rip off the covering of the Batmobile. Old school Batmobile. Looks good. 2 thumbs up to me. That's a good teaser. Especially in comparison to Black Adam. When you consider this is in production at the moment, and they've
Yeah.
finished shooting that.
I'm going one up, one down. I think it's like I'm really excited to see Michael Keaton, Batman, all that sort of stuff. But I'm also just like the only reason I particularly care about this movie is because of Batman and it's titled The Flash. Like it's just yeah. So everything I'm keen for is nothing to do with the titular character, which is weird. But I'm still excited, I guess.
Okay. We got a screenshot of Gwendolyn Christie and Sandman. They pumped up the Injustice animated film, which has not been very well received from what I've seen online and that kind of stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think IGN gave it like a 4, and
Holy
people were
shit.
agreeing with them. That's the most surprising part. The actual
Wonder what
people in the comments were like, yes.
Wonder what the problem is.
Just I think it was like cramming too much stuff in the movie and not enough like character stuff. But the clip looked pretty good from, you know.
Yeah,
kind of
that's
stuff.
like the clip looked good, I thought, but
Yeah, but you know, you still got to stuff in the rest of the film. We got. I'll group these two together. Obviously, we got discussions with the creative teams for Blue Beetle and Batgirl. Whether it was Blue Beetle directors Angel Manuel Soto, Gareth Dunet Olsa, and star Zolo Muraduni. Hopefully, by the time that movie comes out, I'll be able to pronounce all those. So yeah, obviously a very Latinx creative team. Obviously for the first Latin American superhero. This concept art for the suit looks really cool. Hopefully it comes off pretty good and that kind of stuff. And while the Batgirl stuff was obviously Leslie Grace as Batgirl, writer Christina Hodson, and directors Adil Albri and Bilal Falal discussing what they're going to be doing with Barbara Gordon. I think is, got you hyped, for these projects that are still very, very early in production and that kind of stuff, but like kind of giving fans an idea of what direction they're kind of going with these characters and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm keen for both these. I think it's good to see the excitement from, I guess, everyone involved. I thought the Blue Beetle, creative team and cast and everything was super amped, which was good to see. And I think if you don't know anything about that character, seeing people be that excited sort of makes you want to be excited. The Batgirl thing, obviously, I'm excited about that and to learn more, but I didn't really get much information here. They were talking about the costume and all that sort of stuff and red hair and whatever else, but I'm like, I need more.
Yeah, absolutely. Got teaser for the rest of the season of Batwoman. Apparently the bad guy and the good guy are going to be teaming up this season. Crazy.
You can tell the one show Ash doesn't watch. Oh, crazy.
I've kind of dropped off all of the DC stuff currently, so, not enough time in the day.
Who the fuck has time to watch all this shit?
Yeah.
Get a fucking
Who has
second
the energy?
job, like ExplosionNetwork.com, and stop watching all these CW shit.
Yeah. They did show a trailer for the next next DC animated film, Catwoman Hunted. Catwoman being voiced by Elizabeth Gillies. Whereas Batwoman's going to appear, and she sounds like she's voiced by Stephanie Beatrice. Yeah, this looked like a solid. Obviously, I don't know if it's based on a story or not, but it's cool that they're
I'm
doing
keen for this.
female focused.
Yeah, I thought this looked really good. I'm actually keen. I like the art style. I think it looked cool.
Yeah, it looks very anime. So
Yeah.
is it, I know anime is all the rage, but for anything animated, but yeah, classic anime. It sounds like, and they did announce a few other projects they're working on, including the DC animated showcase, which will be a bunch of shorts, including Constantine, the House of Mystery, which will feature Matt Ryan returning, the before-mentioned Teen Titans Go and DC Superhero Girls Mayhem in the Multiverse. That'll unite all those characters. They'll be doing Green Lantern, Beware My Power in the summer, and Battle of the Super Sons, which is going to be the first CG DC movie produced. And then they're going to release a Batman the Long Halloween Deluxe Edition that will bring the two parts that have been released together. So, a lot of interesting stuff on there, and that small market they've got there. They showed a little thing for DC Legends of Tomorrow. They announced core cast for Batman Unburied, which is set to be a Spotify podcast adventure starring Batman, with Gina Rodriguez starring on board as Barbara Gordon, Sam Witwer as the serial killer or the harvester, and Winston Duke is going to be Batman. Interesting choice.
I'm down for it. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, it's just got an interesting...
Deeper Batman voice, I'm sure.
It's true.
You need a deep Batman voice, then you're hired.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a tease for Titans finale, and then obviously not here in Australia at the moment, but also, it's coming back for season 4, so that's cool. We got a small animatics for Harley Quinn season 3. Harley and Ivy are together. They'll make people happy. Got a bit more King Shark. That was cool. We got Bruce Timm, J.J. Abrams, Matt Reeves, James Tucker talked about. If only it was Chris Tucker. James Tucker talked about the upcoming new Batman animated series, Batman Cape Crusader. Obviously, that's going to be very 1940s influenced in the noir sensibilities and that kind of stuff. And it's kind of, what if Bruce Timm did the Batman animated series now, and what kind of direction he would go and that kind of stuff. So yeah, everything they talked about has got me pretty excited for that, and hopefully it'll show somewhere we can actually watch it. That would be nice.
That would be nice.
Small trailer for Young Justice Phantoms. Did you know the 3rd season of Young Justice is still not available here in Australia? Friggin' ridiculous.
I did not know that.
What are you doing? Whoever has the rights. It's been 2 years, I think. No wonder piracy is a big thing. They talked about DMZ, which is going to be a big 4-part HBO limited series starring Rosario Dawson about New York City in the middle of the Second American Civil War, in which, New York has become the middle of the war, I guess, kind of, as this no man's land, kind of. As someone who's read the comics, obviously, I know for a fact it's not going to be closely tied to the comics. Even they said it's focused on another character and kind of is more of her origin story and that kind of stuff. So, but it'll be interesting. Obviously, Ava DuVernay is involved, and I think she's directing and that kind of stuff. So, I think that will be enough to get people interested in that kind of stuff. So, yeah. DMZ coming to HBO, so I assume it'll be coming to Foxtel. They announced they've got this project Naomi. Never heard of this before. It sounds like it's a Brian Michael Bendis project. So that's coming to CW. We got a bit of a behind-the-scenes look at Shazam! Fury of the Gods, including our first looks at Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu as the villains of the next film. They look really good. I'm surprised.
It's such a weird villain cast. It's so weird. I actually had no idea they were in this. Or maybe I completely forgot. I'd read it and I'd forgot. But when the video started, they're like, oh yeah, Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren as the bad guys. I'm like, what? Okay, sure.
Absolutely. And yeah, it looks like they're going to be exploring a bunch of different locations, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm really keen for that one. Obviously, it's been a while since we saw Shazam, the first one. So, Shazam. And they did the joke where the kid said Shazam and then he turned into Zachary Levi. Good times.
At the end, he said Shazam again, and I presumably turned back, but then the trailer started. Got him. Good meme.
I mean, he called the movie Shazam, so he should have gone again. But yeah, it's true. It's true. They had short interview with Patty Jenkins and Linda Carter about the 80th anniversary of Wonder Woman. I don't know if it was confirmed or not before, but they talked about Wonder Woman 3 being a thing.
No, this was the confirmation that apparently she's working on Wonder Woman 3.
Yeah, so that's good,
news.
Baby. That's news. It's a thing,
It's a thing.
There's two people who didn't
Someone who did not like 1984. And my parents the other day were like, we're going to watch Wonder Woman. And I was like, probably don't. And then the next day, my dad's like, so that Wonder Woman movie was pretty bad. Hey, I'm like, I told you not to watch it. So yeah.
Sometimes you just need to watch the bad thing so you know it's a bad thing.
Well, I warned them.
We got a bit of a Q&A for Sweet Tooth. Pennyworth is still a show and it's coming back for another season.
Yeah, I completely forgot that Pennyworth was a show, to be completely honest. And also Sweet Tooth. I still haven't got around to watching that, but it's on my list. But I was like, oh, this kid seems like a nice boy.
He is a nice boy. You should definitely watch that. And then we got to the main event of the show with a short preamble with, Matt Reeves talking about the film with Rob Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz. But then we got the Batman main trailer. And it looks fantastic. It looks like the most artistic version of Batman to date. A lot more. It looks like, comic book frames put on the screen and that kind of stuff. So I think it looks fantastic. What about you, Dylan?
I'm really hyped for this movie. I have a hot take in which I think maybe it's not a hot take, I don't know. But I actually think the first trailer was better. I just felt like this one was sort of weirdly paced. There was lots of really cool shots. I just think the trailer itself was just kind of wasn't quite as tonally sort of one piece that really sold a certain movie as I felt like the teaser was. It just seemed like more, I don't know, maybe you'd call it safer, just more marketed, more like, here's a Batman trailer. Like, you would be like, is this a Batman trailer? No, it's a Batman trailer. Like, it just, the posters they put out the couple days prior or whatever, I was like, holy shit, these posters. Especially that one with the fucking Riddler, like, looking all creepy as fuck. They look like horror movie posters. And then coming into the trailer, I was like, all right, let's go all in on this vibe. And, like, they're like, the way the movie's shot, it has that tinge of red and, like, has this sort of detective noir sort of thing going on along with it, and Matt Reeves ahead of it, talking about bringing it back down to a grounded level and all that sort of stuff. And you get that, but I still just felt like the trailer was not quite, like, I feel like maybe it should have committed more to the tone of those posters or the tone that the first trailer gave off. Because I went back and watched it, and I still think that first trailer just feels a lot better. I still enjoyed this. I'm still really hyped.
No, I get that. I think, obviously, we got a little bit more look at, like, Riddler in that first trailer, whereas this one seemed to be more Penguin-focused, which is crazy, because apparently Penguin is not in this movie a lot. Yeah,
you see his opening shot, you see his last shot. Batman kills him at the end. Music's fucking dope as well, by the way.
The music is great.
Yeah.
It's like, even though I think there's, like, obviously some lyrics or something, so I assume it's like a U song, but then they, like, the score is like, I think somebody pointed out, it's like, it's crazy. It's got a melody. It's like, it's not like a bunch of sounds. It's not like notes.
You can tell it's like a new, because they played it when the talking segment started, like in the introduction, and then they played it again in the trailer, and they played it some other stage. I was like, I get it. You've got this really good new Batman theme, or whatever you're calling it. I'm about it, but I've also heard you play it 3 different times in like the last 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that's everything from DC FanDome.
One up, one down. I don't know if I said that.
Oh, for this trailer, it's 2 thumbs up. It's just Batman.
Batman. It's just Batman.
That's all it needs to be. Yeah. I've seen people complain about the way he says, he's no, when he's shouting at Riddler or whatever.
What'd you do?
It's like people saying, I can't make out what he's saying. It's like, really?
Pretty easy. I've watched it a couple times.
Context clues, guys.
Literally says, he just goes, what'd you do? Yeah, come on. It's no Bane. It's no Bane.
No.
Get over it.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to all of those projects coming in 2022. A lot of those projects, like 4 of the big films.
Aquaman, Shazam, Batman. What'd I miss?
Flash.
Black Adam. Flash. Aren't they all 2022? I thought every single one.
No, Shazam is 2023.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. All right. I guess the other big story of the last couple of weeks, Dave Chappelle, the closer. And just the kind of the story around the reaction to his comedy special, which includes a lot of disparaging remarks to transgender people and talked about genitalia and that kind of stuff, has caused a lot of discomfort amongst not only people who watch Netflix stuff, but also people inside Netflix. Apparently, I'm reading from this Bloomberg article, Netflix Incorporated employees raised concerns about the offensive material in Dave Chappelle's new comedy special, The Closer, days before release, warning executives that a series of jokes about gender-neutral pronouns and the genitalia of transgender people was potentially inflammatory and damaging. The company's leaders, including global head of TV Bella Bajara and co-chief executive officer Ted Sarandos, decided the show didn't cross the line, sparking Netflix's most significant public labor dispute in recent memory. Employees have taken their grievances to internal forums and Twitter. At least 3 were suspended for crashing a meeting and then reinstated following outcry. Now the company is planning to host an internal event with trans activists Alok Vade Menon. Meanwhile, employees are planning a walkout on October 20th. A Netflix spokesperson told Bloomberg News that the company supports artistic expression from its creators and encourages employees to disagree openly. Sarandos has lauded Chappelle as the most watched comedian on Netflix. 10 million people have put on The Closer since its debut, according to a person familiar with reviewer numbers. Co-CEO Reed Hastings said the streaming platform will continue to work with Dave Chappelle in the future. He wrote on an internal message board, "We see him as a unique voice, but can understand if you or others never want to watch his shows." Hastings wrote, according to transcripts of the comics seen by Bloomberg News. So, apparently, somebody leaked a bunch of numbers to Bloomberg, and that person has subsequently been fired. But apparently, the comedy special cost Netflix $24.1 million, compared to the $23.6 million they paid for his 2019 special, Sticks and Stones. By comparison, the streaming service spent $3.9 million for Inside by Bo Burnham, and $21.4 million on the 9 episodes of Squid Game. By Netflix's own measurements, Sticks and Stones had an impact value of $19.4 million, meaning it cost more than the value it generated, according to internal documents reviewed by Bloomberg. The company also evaluates its programs by efficiency, which balances the show's reach with its price tag. On that scale, Chappelle's special scored 0.8, less than the break-even score of 1. By comparison, Burnham's Inside scored 2.8. Yeah, I think it's been a weird week where, it feels like the CEO, Ted Sarandos, has kind of doubled down on Chappelle when a large portion of the audience and a large portion of his employees are kind of against what was said in the special. I haven't watched the special. I assume you haven't watched the special.
I think I talked about on here at some stage how I watched the first Netflix special he did because I was a big Dave Chappelle Show fan growing up. I loved that show, the Little John skits, all that, that show was, everyone loved that show that watched it, right? And then I really got into, I was obsessed with tracking down movies that Dave Chappelle was in, even though he was always just in sort of bit roles or whatever. And I even watched, I own a bunch of his DVDs, including the musical ones he'd done, the Block Party one, which I can't remember the name of, where he gets Mos Def and all this sort of stuff to chuck a block party and whatever else. And I always thought that Dave Chappelle was cool. I was like, Dave Chappelle's a fucking cool dude. And then he disappeared, obviously, for a long time. And then he comes back and these Netflix specials get announced. He's like, I'm coming back, everyone. I'm like, fuck yeah, let's get hype, yo. Watch it. I'm like, nah. I'm like, I don't know. Or maybe I watched 2, because I think maybe I watched the first one. Maybe the first one I was like, there was a couple of jokes. I was like, oh, pushing the line, whatever, it's fine. And then, I think by the time I got to the second one, I was like, there's just a lot of it doesn't feel like jokes anymore. And it's that whole sort of punching up thing where it's just and then I just decided I'm not watching Dave Chappelle stuff anymore because it isn't for me, I guess. So I wasn't going to watch it anymore. So I haven't watched whatever the last one he did before this. And then I definitely wasn't going to watch this one. And then reading about what he says in this, it really isn't a joke. He's trying to, it's one of those things where he's trying to talk, with people, I don't know if you, people often talk about how some people will, especially people online, will be they'll say something really mean and jump to straight away it was a joke though, ha ha, it's fine. As long as I say it's a joke, it's not hurtful then, sort of thing. Or it's not bad. As long as I go, ha, it was a joke. It can't be bad. So it feels like this sort of comes down to it again because he's very much been like, trans women aren't women. I'm a TERF. I'm with J.K. Rowling. They cancelled her. You know, it's all very much how he feels, and he's just like tying it around these jokes. Which, I mean, all good comedians they often talk about their real thoughts and feelings about subjects, but obviously tie them into comedy and jokes, which is fine. But like, why would I want to watch? Like, I just don't, you know, like reading all this stuff, and I was like, yeah, why would I want to watch this? This just fucking sounds dumb, and also it just sounds really weird when, you know, Netflix's whole, well, you know, different viewpoints and all that. That's fine to a degree because you even have like, you can have someone like let's see someone who's like a little bit stepped down, like what the fuck on The Mandalorian?
Gina Carino?
No, Bill Burr. Sorry, Bill Burr.
Okay.
So Bill Burr is someone who some people say, you know, his jokes are a bit edge pushy and all that sort of stuff, and that's his personality in a nutshell. Like he has a very sort of like old man fucking type of personality where it's a joke, you know, sort of stuff. But even he has never said anything quite as like straight up sort of transphobic as what, as what Dave Chappelle said. Because he's the sort of like, I would never be like, don't have him on, or like, there's a bunch of people who've sort of like on the platform who've even made like sort of like, haha, it's a joke, sort of like stuff to do with the LGBTQ community. Even like Jeff, Australian dude. Like I've watched his ones, and even he has a couple of jokes that are sort of like, haha, gay joke, you know, like sort of thing. But none of them are anywhere near to the point where I'm like, you shouldn't have this on the platform. Whereas reading what Chappelle says, I'm like, this is just straight up like, this is making a stand. Yeah, to a degree. I'm like, well, yeah. I like when he comes out, it's like, well, I want to hear different people should be able to make jokes about sort of stuff and whatever. I'm like, yeah, a lot of people on Netflix do, and I think that's fine. There's a bunch of comedians that you put specials up for that I personally don't want to watch because I think they're type. Like, I don't watch Ricky Gervais anymore. You know, same sort of thing. Like Ricky Gervais was someone else who I own like all of his first like 3-4 comedy specials on DVD. Like loved Office, loved Extras, all this sort of stuff. And I got to a degree, you know, a couple of years back where I was like, Ricky Gervais just isn't funny to me anymore. Like it's just like his sort of like humor isn't for me. Same sort of thing where I stopped watching it. But I mean, he's on the platform. But even him, unless I'm wrong, but even he, I don't think he's ever said something quite. Or maybe in his last special, I think he was saying some similar sort of stuff to a degree about monkeys and like something about if you can be a monkey or something. I don't know. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it should come as no surprise to anyone who's listened to this podcast or knows me or listens to stuff. I'm like, yeah, this is fucking dumb. I don't know why would you want to host this sort of stuff? It just comes across as like we got to draw a line at some stage. The line is like, do you want to be on the right side of history or the wrong side of history? This isn't you know, what's the best Xbox, PlayStation sort of line. It's not nothing. It's like people's livelihood. It's people get bullied and killed and fucking shot, and you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you gotta draw a line somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I worry that like we're hearing this stuff out of context, but you know, he's not using that excuse as to why people are upset. You know, like you misunderstood the message I was trying to give. Like, if you listen to his higher special, it's like
he talks about like I've read transcripts, right? So I'm saying this so people can be like, we didn't actually watch it. I'm not going to. To be honest, I'm not going to. But like I know he brings up, I think it was a trans. Yeah, it must be a woman because that was the whole point of the thing. Like another comedian who used to open for him or something, and she passed away or whatever. But he ends with like some line about like, I'm going to tell her son or something that your mother was the best man I ever knew, or you know, some really weird sort of thing where he's like, look, I don't hate trans people, but I accepted that like I called her a her, but like I always knew she was a he. Like it's like some weird thing where he's like trying to be like I'm like, I do respect trans people, but I also
don't respect them enough to talk to them the way they want to be talked to.
Yeah, it's like I'll call you what you want to be called, but also I'm just not believing it and being like, you're not actually a woman. Yeah, it just comes across like reading that sort of stuff. I'm like, well, he's not actually an ally. Yeah. Like, that's just like a weird,
Yeah, I think like from a PR perspective, this is like such a bad look.
It's a clusterfuck. People are canceling their subscriptions. Yeah.
Like, I don't think it'll affect Netflix massively financially.
Most people don't care or read about it. My parents aren't going to read about this or care. You know, most people aren't going to give a single fuck. I'm not cancelling my Netflix over it because I fucking need it for so many things, and I'm willing to say that right now and whatever else. Like, I think that's where I'm drawing the line. People are trying to organize a day, and I think that's a good day. You know, like, hey, on this day we want to go on strike. If you want to participate, don't watch anything on Netflix that day. And see if that, like, because that they would see that, we wouldn't be able to see that, but they could see and be like, look, this many people went streaming today. It was like a huge chunk. They're still subscribed, but also like that is a huge chunk that may, if we don't do something, potentially may cancel. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, there's ways to go about stuff, but yeah, I mean, I understand completely especially, you know, the trans community, if they're like, we're all fucking canceling on Netflix. I'm like, yeah, well, totally get that. You know what I mean? Like, fucking do that shit. But
yeah, and like, obviously they've been pushing all this diversity stuff that they've been doing. It's like,
it's really weird.
How can people like believe that you're making these efforts when you've got this also putting this content on your service as well?
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah. So I think now is a good time for this week's top 3.
Definitely in the top 3.
This week's top 3 is top 3 comedy specials you should watch instead of Teshuel's Calosa. Dylan, what's your number 3?
I'm going to be honest, I completely forgot about this until like 10 minutes ago, so I was quickly trying to like jot down some things. So I've wrote down people's names, and now I'm going to try to remember their...
Oh, it's like a game show.
Yeah, I've just wrote down the comedians' names, and I'm going to try to work out which fucking things. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4... I've got 6 people's names here. So let's go with... Because I feel like I don't want to like double dip on ones we may cross over with. So let's go with first... Let's go with Eric Andre, one of his Netflix. By the way, I'm assuming I'm going to pick all Netflix ones because the ones that I know are on Netflix because, like, that's...
I will say, I think probably the best thing you could do instead of watching Closer is, like, I think you've got that documentary that you watched last year, Disclosure, about people, trans people in the industry.
Yeah, that was really good.
Instead of not watching anything on Netflix, just watch that.
Yeah. But everyone should watch that. It's just like, that's a...
And it'll be like, what the fuck? They're like, trending at number 1 on everybody's homepage.
They're like, we're doing Disclosure 2, everyone.
It's just about this clusterfuck.
Completely misses the fucking point of anything, but yeah. Eric Andre. I can't remember. I think it's called. Hold on, I found it. Let's go with this one. I watched this last year. It was quite good. Eric Andre, Legalize Everything. Let's go with that one. That was good. I watched it last year. Watch that. Cool. So I'm trying to like mix up my picks here. So Eric Andre is a very fucking weird comedian. Very out there, very loud, very sort of. He pushes the humor boundaries in ways that I think are fun and interesting and not really offensive, you know. But just like he pushes what some people may find offensive, including if you don't like nudity or cringe humor, which I know Ash hates. But yeah, Eric Andre, Legalize Everything. Go with that.
All right. For number 3, I've got to go with our boy Ronnie Chang and his special.
I nearly went with
Destroys
Ronnie Chang, but I knew you would take it. So this is why I'm mixing it up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great special. Obviously, Ronnie Chang, very funny. You know, lots of interesting points, like talking about how dumber we are because of the internet, how people have gotten dumber because of the internet, which is incredibly true, especially when you consider this special came out 2019, I think, before coronavirus and all the stupid people. I've read stuff on the internet, that kind of stuff, you know, and there's a bunch of bits, like I've gone back and watched this several times, and that's kind of a running theme for a lot of these specials, so I assume you could probably pick my other 2 as well, so Dylan, what's your number 2 then?
Hassan Minaj, yeah?
Hassan Minaj, Homecoming King, which is also my number 2.
There you go, Homecoming King. One of the best on Netflix, straight up. It's very funny, very poignant, tackles a lot of really interesting themes. Obviously, we'll focus on his sort of upbringing as a he's American, right?
He's American.
So Indian American Muslim, yeah, like his upbringing and all that sort of stuff, and like that's a big focus point of it. His family life and culture in America. So there's like a whole segment around 9/11 and all this sort of stuff and what he had to deal with. It's like It's been a couple of years since I watched it, but there's it's really, really good. It's really funny, and obviously I kind of wish he had done another one by now, but maybe he would have if COVID wasn't a thing, but I don't know. But.
Well, so obviously he had his show, Patriot Act, which kind of filled in. But he is touring now, so there's potential for,
there you go.
Potential for another Netflix special. So yeah, that was also my number 2. So Dylan, what's your number 1?
Fucking hell. Swings and roundabouts. What if we pick the same number 1? Fuck. If I pick that, you'll go, no, I feel like you'd be more likely to pick that. Yeah, right, I'll go Hannah Gatsby Nanette. Did I dodge the one? Because I feel
you dodged. Yeah.
Okay, I assume you're going to pick something, the person whose first name starts with 2 letters. Yeah. So I'll go Hannah Gatsby Nanette. Yeah. So obviously, if you haven't watched, we talked about this a lot. It's really good. It's both a combination of sort of a TED talk with a stand-up comedy show, and for some people, they're like, "That's what I watch, what dick and fart jokes." But look, I'm all for this new age comedy form where it's both about making you laugh and entertaining you and feeling like you're the people on stage is more just like, I feel like it's an evolution of comedy to a degree, more so than just, there's different types of comedy. You can get sort of people who get on stage and they just practice they've practiced their same sort of 20 jokes and they've got the way they do it, and that's the sort of thing, and they transition through it. And I feel like there's a group of new comedians who, it's a new age form where it's, I guess even like Hassan, it's like this, it's jokes mixed with political real humor and or real world talk
real
and
stuff.
humor and everything, real shit. Put it that way, some real shit, and I really, really enjoy it. So if you haven't watched Nanette, I don't want to yap on it too much because we talked about it quite a lot a couple of years ago when it came out.
Yeah.
So definitely go watch it.
Yeah, my number 1, Bo Burnham's Inside.
Whoa!
The comedy special of the year, should be getting all the awards. It has gotten a bunch of awards. Just an incredible piece that is so relevant to our times that we live in. Not just, obviously our locked in times, but the just where we are as a human race right now. So definitely check that out. I do also have an interesting tie-in story where apparently he's been deemed ineligible for the Comedy Grammy Award, Best Comedy Album. I don't know.
How does that not win Best Comedy Album?
I don't know.
That's fucking bullshit.
It is fucking bullshit.
That doesn't make any sense.
And it is interesting because apparently none of this information usually comes out unless somebody is upset. unless the record label leaks the information. Which is crazy because Bo Burnham's album was number 1 on the comedy charts for 18 weeks. And it's still in top spot. So that's kind of crazy. But he will be eligible for best compilation soundtrack for visual media.
And he'll be eligible for ExplosionOut.com's 2021 awards, which is the most important.
That's true. I will say he's also put it up for All Eyes on Me has been submitted for Record of the Year, Song of the Year, and Best Pop Solo Performance.
Not White Woman's Instagram? That's disappointing.
No. And then, the Netflix special is up for Best Music Film, and Inside is for Best Full-Length Recording as Album of the Year. So, imagine that. Imagine if Bo Burnham picks up as many Grammys as Billie Eilish did that year. That'd be crazy.
Love to see it.
Love to see it. Alright, let's finish today's episode with some thumbs for trailers. Alright, let's kick things off with Scream. The second film in the Scream franchise to be called Scream. Directed by Matt Benelli-Olphin and Tyler Gillett. Starring David Arquette, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, Roger L. Jackson, Miley Shelton, Melissa Barea, Jenny Ortega, Jack Quaid, Mason Gooding, Jasmine Savoy Brown, Dylan Minnette, Mikey Madison, Sonia Ben Amir, and Kyle Gallner. 25 years after a streak of brutal murders shocked the quiet town of Woodsboro, California, a new killer dons the ghost face mask and begins targeting a group of teenagers to resurrect secrets from the town's deadly past. Dylan, you're a Scream fan. What'd you think of this one?
Double thumbs up. Really excited. Trailer doesn't spoil too much. Love. I mean, it shows you what? Ghostface. It shows you these killing people, or she's killing people. Who fucking knows who's under there?
No. Sydney's back.
Yeah, Sydney's back. The cast is here. Dewey's probably going to fucking eat shit. Love that. And, yeah, I mean, I just love the franchise. I can't wait for another one. I love the two directors involved in this. Obviously, they've done Fuck, I meant to blank out their names. What are their names? Fuck, I need their names. Because they go by,
Matt Bellinelli, Olfen, and Tyler Gillett.
yeah, because
Phil.
they're as Billy Off and whatever. That's how they usually credit as whatever. But their previous movies have. So as soon as they announced this, I was like,
Ready
totally.
or Not was their last
Yeah,
one.
primarily Ready or Not is the one. So if you want to watch like Ready or Not is a really good sort of. It's a horror movie with a lot of comedy chops and like not making it into a comedy like straight up. So like Shaun the Dead, I guess, but it does have a lot of comedy and it's very like tongue in cheek and it's got a lot of character. And like after they were announced to be doing Scream, I was like, oh, definitely after Ready or Not, they're totally the sorts
That
of people
makes sense,
that makes sense for this type of movie because Scream's always been, you know, it's a proper horror movie. However,
but
it
it's
has
a
a lot of
satire
comedy.
on.
Yeah, it's a satire in the franchise or the genre itself, while also not being a full-on comedy, but it's also quite funny at times. And the characters have a lot of personality, and usually the side characters have a lot of personality and whatever else. So, yeah, I'm keen. It's also going to be quite interesting to watch, also because Kevin, I think it's the first one that Kevin Williamson isn't actually like writing properly. Like, I think it's just like he just gets a credit for being the creator of the franchise, but I don't think he's like properly writing anything, not even the story or anything. And I think he did for 4. No. So, yeah, he wrote 4. So it'll be the first Scream that he hasn't touched at all. So that's going to be interesting. Double thumbs up, though. I'm really keen. It's a weird time for this movie to come out, January, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, people like horror things. No, people get murdered at other times of the year. You know?
That's true. I mean, I watch horror movies all year long.
Serial killers don't just strike at October.
Yeah, I think it's just the big horror franchises. I think October, and I can still take horror movies all year long. But when I think like big, you know, Halloween, Friday 13th, Nightmare, you know, like any of these sorts of things, the big ones, I'm like October, right? But no.
I know. Yeah, I think it looks like a good trailer. Obviously, I watched the first one. We talked about it with Buddy and Nick at some point,
like
in the past,
20 years ago,
maybe. So yeah, I'm looking forward to maybe catching up and maybe watching this one of these. So yeah, this one gets 2 thumbs up from me. Next trailer is The Tender Bar, directed by George Clooney, starring Ty Sheridan, Ben Affleck, Lily Rabe, Christopher Lloyd, and Daniel Ranieri. A boy seeks a replacement for his father, who disappeared shortly after his birth, and bonds with his uncle and the patrons at a bar. Dylan, does this strike you as a George Clooney movie?
Well, George Clooney has range, I guess, between the stuff he's directed. So, like, if you ever look up his directing credits, he's done a mix of stuff. So, it
kind of
doesn't
eclectic,
really shock me, no. Ben Affleck looks quite good in this. At first, I was like, him in this role seems weird, but then the longer the trailer went on, as the sort of father figure thing, I was like, no, actually, I'm totally into this. I don't know who this person is, the biography or whatever autobiography it's based on. Don't know anything about the person, but
so it's J.R. Moehringer, who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer.
Yep, good for them. But yeah, I think it looks good. The cast looks great. You've got Doc there, Scream being grandpa or whatever, so that's good. But yeah, double thumbs up. I'm definitely keen to watch it on Amazon. And not in cinemas.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up from me as well. This looks like a really good drama. I feel like Ben Affleck looks really good. Ty Sheridan looks solid. I mean, he's not playing some kid
X-Men
in a
character?
virtual world. So, where were you going?
I was going to say X-Men, but
that's true. That's another one. So yeah, I think it looks pretty solid. A good drama. So this one's potentially coming to theaters December 17th. Otherwise, it'll be in Prime Video January 7th. Next up, Home Sweet Home Alone, directed by Dan Mazer, starring Ellie Kemper, Rob Delaney, Archie Yates, Aislinn B., Kenan Thompson, Pete Holmes, Ali Mackey, and Chris Parnell. 10-year-old Max Mercer is accidentally left at home by himself on the holidays when his family goes on a trip to Tokyo, where the family ends up having to take separate flights due to an error in the flight booking. Now he must work to defend his home from Pam and Jeff Fritzofsky, an evil couple who have arrived to steal a priceless heirloom from his family. Dylan, what did you think of this 5th entry, I think, 5th or 6th entry in the Home Alone franchise, and why did they make them British?
I don't know why they made him British, but I guess it works.
I guess the kid just couldn't do an American accent.
American
that would
accent.
be the reason.
Fucking shitty actor. I like Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, so one up, one down. I'm keen to see. I'm actually going to watch it. I think it's definitely not something I expect to walk away and be like, man, that was so much better than the original. Or, wow, that was like so good or whatever. But considering it's on Disney Plus, Christmas movie, it's completely owning the fact that it's just remaking it without really trying to do much too different, and you're just going for a new age audience. And you know what? Whatever. I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, it's one up, one down for me. It feels like it just the way who was it, Aisling B, the mother, like talks at the airport. It's like, yeah, it seems like such an impersonation of Catherine O'Hara in the first film. Like, and you know, maybe it'll be fun. I don't know if it'll be as fun, like attacking two nice-looking people rather than, you know, Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern.
Look, they keep coming back though, obviously. So maybe they're not so nice. Like you'd think the first time would be a hint, but
they only came back once.
They keep coming back in the trailer.
Oh, in this trailer, yeah. I don't know. As long as if there's some good like moments and like good traps and that kind of stuff, it might be cool. But yeah, I feel like I'm pessimistic on this. So yeah, one up, one down for me, veering towards two down. So all right. Next up, we've got the trailer for Cyrano, the new film from Joe Wright. Starring Peter Dinklage, Haley Bennett, Kelvin Harrison Jr., Bashir Salahuddin, and Ben Mendelsohn. Cyrano de Bergerac dazzles everyone with his ferocious wordplay and brilliant swordplay. However, he's convinced his appearance renders him unworthy of the affection of the luminous Roxanne, a devoted friend who's in love with someone else. So obviously this is the story of Cyrano de Bergerac, which has been adapted several times. And the plot has been done several times in different ways and that kind of stuff. Obviously, the big difference to the original is that in the original, like, he has a giant nose, like people would probably remember from the movie Roxanne, where Steve Martin has like a giant nose. But obviously, in this, it's Peter Dinklage, and the thing that he's worried about is his dwarfism and that kind of stuff. So, also, it's never been a musical before. Now it's a musical. The music was done by Peter Dinklage's wife, who also wrote the screenplay and that kind of stuff. So, interesting behind-the-scenes kind of stuff. Dylan, what do you think of Cyrano?
One up, one down. I feel like I'm not super, like, I've seen this story done so many times now, like, adapted into more new age versions, that just the general setup of, right the fucking...
Hey, can you help me write for the girl you're in love with?
Yeah, like I've seen this done like in so many recent sort of high school movies, I guess. That
there was that Netflix one last year.
Yeah, one of that was gold as well. Like it was it's just like not super engaging, I guess. Like I know this is the original, and maybe I shouldn't be like, I've seen it done. Like I understand that, but also just not particularly interesting. Maybe that's what they're hoping the musical will add a new reason to care or whatever. But, I mean, Peter Dinklage looks like it's like he's like acting looks really good in the trailer, so this could be a big performance for him. And it looks like it's shot well and whatever else. And Joe Wright is a good director, and he's quite good at doing these romance movies. That's sort of his like bread and butter to a degree. So I'll watch it, but I wouldn't say I'm super intrigued. But I'll give the trailer one up, one down.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd probably give it one up, one down as well. Obviously, yeah, like you said. You look up the Cyrano on Wikipedia and look at all the things that have been adapted from it. It's a very long list and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, but I'm keen. I think Peter Dinklage just looks really good. Peter Dinklage, like, doing some swordsmanship and stuff. Like, stuff you never got to see him do in Game of Thrones. You know, being swashbuckling and shit. Did he?
Yeah. On the siege of King's Landing.
No, that's true. But yeah. It's an interesting one. It'll be interesting. Like, I'll probably just wait and see what the reaction is, potentially. Yeah. That's coming to see it at the cinemas in Australia, 13th of January, 2022. Final film, The Black Phone, directed by Scott Derrickson, starring Ethan Hawke, Mason Thames, Madeline McGraw, Jeremy Davies, and Jason Ransone. After 5 children go missing in a suburban Colorado town in the 1970s, Finney Shaw is soon to become the 6th victim when he is kidnapped by a serial killer and trapped inside of a soundproof basement. Finding a disconnected phone, Shaw discovers its ability to transport the voices of the killer's previous victims, who try to help him to escape. Dylan, what do you think of this trailer?
Oh, I'm so excited for this. This jumped very fast up my list of most sort of anticipated movies. This is one of those things where there's been a few recently trailers I've been watching. I'm like, oh, thank fuck, something original, something exciting that's not really a remake or whatever else. It's based on Joe Hill's short story or whatever. But other than that, at least it's not a remake or a sequel or whatever else. It looks really, really good. It looks like it's got a lot of all the best horror movies have a theme and something that's more than just people are getting killed. That shit's fucked. So kid cast looks great. Ethan Hawke looks fucking terrifying. Those masks are absolutely fucked. It looks like it's shot really well. I'm glad that Scott Derrickson, a lot of these horror directors who fuck off to Marvel for a couple of years, I'm glad that all of them eventually just make sure to come. Because whenever they announce them, I'm like, oh, I love all these movies. When they announced Doctor Strange, I was like, oh, I loved Sinister. I love the exorcism of Emily Rose. I'm like, oh, such a big fan. And then I'm like, oh, Doctor Strange, I can't wait. He'll be really good. And then I straight off, I'm like, okay, have you been lost to the ether of Hollywood movies now or whatever? He's like, no, come back. Do another one. Ethan Hawke's in it as well. I'm like, yeah, keep working with him. Let's go. So yeah, double thumbs up. This is my favorite trailer of the pick.
This looks freaky as fuck. It's one of those movies do I want to watch it? But I mean, it's got some interesting ideas and that kind of stuff of girls having dreams and all the people who died before are teaming up to try and get him to escape and that kind of stuff. Ethan Hawke looks freaky as fuck in that. Like you said, that mask is that's going to go straight to the top of people's list for Halloween costumes at the end of the year and that kind of stuff.
Secret to a good horror movie: make a good mask.
Yeah, memorable mask. That's the thing. Interesting concept and that kind of stuff. So I will give the trailer 2 thumbs up, and that's coming to cinemas in the much horrified-filled January 27th. All right.
Can I just shout out a trailer because I just want to say everyone should watch it and be excited about it. Red Rocket, did you watch that trailer?
I did watch that trailer.
Fucking how good.
The Sean Baker?
Sean Baker, yeah. So everyone should go watch Tangerine, and everyone should go watch The Florida Project. I only watched those within maybe the last, I think, 12 to 18 months or something. I watched them last year, I think. But yeah, I watched both those and I was like, oh, I'm a Sean Baker fan now. So as soon as this came out, I was like, let's fucking go. It looks good.
It's interesting. It's showing at Biff as well, so.
Fucking hell. Bullshit. Every movie I want to watch.
Listen, if you're in Brisbane, you should go see all the movies at the Brisbane Film Festival. At least all the ones Dylan wants to watch. Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Let us know what you thought of any of the trailers that we talked about. What are your top 3 specials to watch instead of the closer, or what movies I should go watch at Biff by going to explosion.com/Twitter. You can find both our Twitter handles, or you can jump to Discord at explosion.com/Discord. If you want to help us out here at What Do You Want to Watch, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Podchaser, or tell people about the show. And if you like this episode, throw us worth $1, head on over to our Ko-fi page at explosion.com/support. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time, keep watching stuff, I guess.